Hi, this is Amanda Phillips sharing my Module 4 demonstration on mathematics. There are several difficulties that students with disabilities can face in regard to academic tasks. Every child and their needs are unique, but there are general commonalities and kind of umbrella statements that can be made about challenges that students with disabilities can face in general. These difficulties include being able to access an academic task or problem due to troubles with reading, writing, math, or foundational skills, such as dyslexia, dyscalculia, or dysgraphia. They can have trouble with comprehension, understanding directions, processing information, and organizing their thoughts. Difficulty focusing, paying attention to directions and details, and really having stamina to be engaged in a task and also complete it. They can have a hard time feeling motivated and interested in tasks, not feeling caught up with what they can feel caught up with just focusing on what they can't do or what will be hard. They can also be faced with processing deficits, trouble making sense of data, remembering what's important, and what they need to do in order to be successful. And other difficulties that can impact academic tasks but aren't considered academic include social abilities, collaboration, and communicating with their peers. This would impact their ability to work with a group on a task. Students with disabilities can face particular challenges in math, and some of these difficulties include mistakes such as number additions, substitutions, transpositions, omissions, and reversals in writing, reading, and recalling numbers. They can have difficulty with abstract concepts of time and direction. They have inconsistent results in addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, a hard time visualizing or almost appearing like absent-minded or lost in thought, difficulty remembering math facts, concepts, rules, formulas, sequences, and procedures. This is a really big one that I see, especially with a lot of my special ed students in middle school. Many of the skills and concepts in pre-algebra require students to have the computation skills in order to access the complex formulas and equations. So I give students a tool such as their multiplication chart or a calculator, which really helps even the playing field. They're able to access that grade level content without computation and those errors or lack of memorization holding them back. Students with disabilities in a math class can also have difficulty with left and right orientation, a hard time following sequential procedures and directions in steps, especially I feel like third grade really starts introducing multi-step problems, and that just continues through high school. They have a slowness or can have a slowness in understanding concepts in word problems, confusing operation signs or performing them in the wrong order, such as with order of operations, and they have limited strategic planning ability. This is also something that I notice more and more as I work with the upper grades. One of the benefits of being a math instructional coach is being able to observe and work with students from first grade through seventh grade. And I really see this a lot across many grade levels, especially when playing games. Games are a great way to get all students talking about math and thinking critically, while also being engaged and having fun. But I notice in games that many students who are diagnosed with learning disabilities not really being able to anticipate what their partner is going to be doing, whether that's in a game where students are collecting coins to make $1, or with my middle schoolers, we were playing Battleship to go over the coordinate planes and positive, negative integers. And it was just really hard for them to strategize and think about their partner's move and how that should impact their strategy, or anticipating what their partner will do and strategizing. Also, students with disabilities can struggle with the language of math, having a hard time really stopping after a problem or a task and thinking back, what did I do? Does my answer make sense? Is it logical? I find that often my students are focused on really getting it done and moving on and really just checking that box rather than really asking themselves if their answer is logical. When we think about the skills needed for math, I find it as a math coach to really rely heavily on the research and experts within NCTM, the National Council for Teaching Mathematics. Their process standards highlight the mathematical processes that students draw on to acquire and use their content knowledge. So the process standards through NCTM that I think really lay the foundation for skills in math are problem solving, reasoning and proof, communication, connections, and representation. So these skills are going to be on top of whatever the standards of learning are for that particular grade level in school, whether that's Common Core, the state of Virginia using the Virginia Standards of Learning, for independent schools, what curriculum they're pulling on. So the processes that NCTM has laid out for us really complement best practices and then can be intertwined and represented across grade levels all the way K through 12 and connect with any type of standards that a school chooses to follow. Problem solving really just means that they're able to apply a variety of strategies appropriately. So understanding the problem and thinking about what strategy would be effective and efficient to use. Being able to transfer skills between topics and giving kids complex problems that require them to use some grit and really stick with it. One of my goals has been and continues to be also giving my students problems that carry over days that really instills that perseverance in them. Reasoning and proof helps develop ideas, providing proof for their thinking and really a way for them to defend themselves, noticing patterns, and using skills in real-life situations. That's where project-based learning really comes into hand, whether that's converting measurements to make a recipe or designing your dream day with a certain budget. Another process standard is communication, organizing thoughts and engaging in academic discourse, both with their teachers and peers. I start every single class with a math talk, just a way for my students to be respectfully agreeing and disagreeing with others while sharing their thinking, multiple strategies, and really modeling think aloud for their peers. Making connections is an important skill needed for math. Using skills in other areas and content. A pretty big one that comes to mind right away is science. And I see this also a lot with my middle school teachers and their life science and bio classes. The final process skill outlined that's needed for math are representations, creating and using multiple representations for math topics. I personally use something called a rule of 4 in my classroom. So when students are working on a task, I often ask them to represent their solution using a rule of 4. So using pictures from the real world or an illustration showing how the skill or the answer would be represented in the real world. Just words, being able to write about math, showing an equation or an expression using numbers, and then also creating a model. So again, that's pictures, words, numbers, and a model. I think when I'm reflecting back on math, which I feel like I do quite often, I'm always drawn back to the idea of its complexity. We are so far beyond a time of thinking about math just as procedures. A depth of understanding is really shown with our students when they're flexibly thinking and they're able to use numbers in a variety of ways. Children can show depth of understanding through multiple representations, engaging in real math talk, not just sharing out an answer, but listening to their partner, providing feedback, thinking with a critical eye, defending, thinking of a proof or a rule, and testing out a theory, and really holding on to a strong foundational understanding of the power of place value. For me as a teacher, NCTM, like I said, has an abundance of resources to show best practices and how to address misconceptions, which has also been really powerful for me when teaching my students with disabilities. There are articles and research and strategies. One that I learned about and have been doing a lot of investigation on is the intervention called Bridges. It's a resource designed for mathematics intervention in Tier 2 environments, and it provides a targeted instruction and support within the RTI framework. It's intended to complement the regular day-to-day math instruction, and it's ideal for small groups and can be also used one-on-one with individuals. Students work with models that promote thinking and building their confidence, which is also a huge thing for our students with disabilities. And it starts with manipulatives and moves to two-dimensional representations, and then really helps students become more concrete in their mental images. For example, when I say 1/3, I want my students to be able to picture that as a fraction, as a division problem, as a model, and in something from real life. It's organized by content rather than grade level, has really great progress monitoring, and it's about 30-minute sessions. So I'm super excited through this class, thankfully, to continue looking into that intervention as a possible resource to help with my students with learning disabilities. There's a lot we can do to support all of our learners along the continuum, and I think that really comes back to modeling, like I said, encouraging discourse and flexible thinking, multiple ways to get to a solution, and the most important, focusing on the process and not just the product. Praising the process, the grit, the hard work, and not just focusing on celebrating a correct answer. I think some of my goals moving forward as a math teacher are going to be a lot of exposure to real life problems, and continue starting every single math class with a math talk. It's a really powerful way to ground students in their learning for the day and set them up for success right away. Thank you.